Welcome, everyone. Today we're talking about model selection metrics for machine learning, specifically how to choose an optimal set of predictors. If you've ever built a regression model and wondered whether to keep that 15th feature, or watched your validation accuracy quietly diverge from your training accuracy, this talk is about the toolkit that answers that question. We'll cover AIC, BIC, malloc, cross-validation, and regularization. 5 different lenses on the same underlying trade-off between how well a model fits and how complex it's allowed to be. By the end, you should walk away with a clear sense of which metric to reach for and why the metric you choose actually shapes the model you ship. Let's start with why this problem is harder than it looks. Here's the uncomfortable fact that motivates everything in this talk. In an ordinary linear regression, adding another predictor can only decrease the residual sum of squares on your training data. R squared goes up, or at worst stays flat, every single time you add a variable. It doesn't matter if that variable is genuinely predictive or pure random noise. The training metric literally cannot tell the difference. That means in-sample fit is an unreliable referee. If you used R squared alone to decide which predictors to keep, you'd always end up keeping all of them because the metric rewards complexity unconditionally. What we actually need is a way to penalize complexity, not just reward fit. And there are real costs on both sides of this. Choose too few predictors and the model underfits. It misses real signal that was sitting right there in the data. Choose too many and it overfits. It memorizes quirks and noise in the training set that simply won't repeat when the model sees new data in production. So here's the core tension that every metric in this talk is built to resolve. Selection metrics exist to estimate out-of-sample error using only the training data you have in front of you. They do that in 3 different ways: exact mathematical penalties like AIC, BIC, and CP, resampled estimates like cross-validation, or built-in shrinkage as in lasso and elastic net. Let's build the mental model that ties all 3 together. This chart is the single most important picture in the entire talk, so I want to spend real time on it. On the x-axis, we have the number of predictors in the model complexity, essentially. On the y-axis, error. The blue line is training error, and the red line is test error. Error on data the model has never seen. Notice the blue line. It falls monotonically. It just keeps going down as you add predictors, exactly like we said a moment ago. More variables, better in-sample fit, always. But the red line, the one that actually matters for a model in production, is U-shaped. It falls, bottoms out, and then rises again. That shape gives us 3 zones. On the left, with too few predictors, we're in the underfit zone. Both training and test error are high because the model is missing real signal. In the middle, around 6 or 7 predictors here, we hit the sweet spot. This is the minimum of that U-shaped curve, the point every selection metric is trying to locate. And on the right, the overfit zone. Training error keeps dropping, looking better and better, while test error climbs because the model is now fitting noise that happens to be in this particular training set. Here's the punchline. We never actually get to see the red curve in practice. We only have training data. Every metric we're about to discuss, AIC, BIC, CP, cross-validation, lasso, is a different strategy for estimating where that red curve bottoms out without ever directly observing it. So how do we estimate that minimum? There are 3 families of approaches, and it's worth knowing all 3 because they show up in different corners of practice. The first family is in-sample criteria. AIC from Akaike in 1974, BIC from Schwartz in 1978, malloc from 1973, and adjusted R squared. These all work the same way. You fit the model once, take the training likelihood or residual sum of squares, and add a closed-form penalty term based on the number of parameters. Because there's no refitting involved, these are fast. You can compute AIC or BIC for a candidate model in the time it takes to fit it once. The second family is resampling. K-fold cross-validation, leave one out CV, repeated CV, and bootstrap methods like 0.632+. These take a completely different approach. Instead of a mathematical penalty, they directly estimate out-of-sample error by holding some data back, fitting on the rest, and measuring performance on the held-out portion. That directness comes at a cost. You're refitting the model many times, but it makes very few assumptions about the underlying model form. The third family is embedded or shrinkage-based methods. Lasso with an L1 penalty, ridge with an L2 penalty, elastic net, which blends the two, and stability selection, which we'll come back to later. What's distinctive here is that selection isn't a separate step at all. It happens inside the model fitting objective itself through a penalty directly on the coefficients. Keep these three families in mind: fast closed-form penalties, direct resampled estimates, and built-in shrinkage, because the rest of the talk is really about when to reach for each one.
Let's make this concrete with code. This is a best subset selection routine in Python that combines an in-sample criterion with a resampling check. At the top, we bring in iter tools for generating combinations, stats models for fitting ordinary least squares and getting AIC directly off the fitted model, and Scikit-learn's cross-val score for the resampling piece. The function best subset takes a design matrix, a target series, and a maximum number of predictors to consider, max k. It loops over every possible subset size from 1 up to max k, and for each size, it enumerates every combination of that many columns. That's what combinations from iter tools is doing on line 8. For each candidate subset, we fit an OLS model and check its AIC. And here's the key efficiency trick on line 11. We only run the expensive 5-fold cross-validation when a candidate's AIC beats our current best. That keeps the search roughly order 2 to the p instead of 2 to the p multiplied by the cost of cross-validation for every single subset. AIC acts as a cheap first filter, cross-validation acts as a more expensive confirmation, only on the leading candidates. One important caveat, and it's right below the code. This exhaustive approach is fine for a small number of candidate predictors, but 2 to the p grows explosively. Once you're past 15 or 20 predictors, you switch to forward or backward stepwise search, or you move to lasso, which we'll discuss shortly. Those scale far better than brute force enumeration. Now let's get practical about trade-offs, starting with in-sample criteria versus cross-validation. On compute cost, it's not close. AIC, BIC, and CP need 1 fit per candidate model, so they're cheap. Cross-validation needs k fits per candidate. With 5 or 10 folds, that's 5 to 10 times the compute. On assumptions, in-sample criteria need a correctly specified likelihood or linear model to be theoretically justified. Cross-validation is much more forgiving. It works for essentially any predictive model, linear or not, because it's just measuring held-out error directly. The penalty logic differs too, and this matters more than people expect. BIC penalizes complexity more aggressively as your sample size grows, which makes it what statisticians call consistent. Asymptotically, it tends to select the true model if one exists. AIC is tuned toward prediction accuracy rather than recovering the true model, so it can select a larger model than BIC would, even with plenty of data. Cross-validation, meanwhile, has no explicit penalty term at all. It just measures error on held-out folds directly. So reach for AIC, BIC, or CP when you need fast iteration, or you're comparing nested linear or generalized linear models. Reach for cross-validation when you're working with nonlinear models, your sample size is small to moderate, or you need a final validation check before shipping. And know the watchouts. BIC can underselect with a small sample. AIC can overselect as your data grows. And cross-validation has high variance with a small number of folds or a small dataset. And leave one out CV in particular gets expensive fast. The second trade-off is between subset search, stepwise or best subset, and regularization methods like lasso and elastic net. The biggest differentiator is scaling. Stepwise and best subset search are combinatorial, so they handle small numbers of predictors fine, but fall apart once the predictor count is large. Lasso, on the other hand, is the standard tool once you're in high-dimensional territory. Genomics, text features, anything where you have hundreds or thousands of candidate predictors. Stability across resamples is another real difference. Stepwise selection tends to be unstable. A small change in the training data can flip which variables get selected entirely. Regularization methods are generally more stable, and elastic net in particular has a grouping effect that helps when predictors are correlated. There's also a difference in what the coefficients mean. Stepwise selection gives you unbiased OLS estimates for whichever variables survive. Lasso and friends shrink coefficients towards 0. They're biased, but that bias buys lower variance, which is often a good trade for prediction. On interpretability, stepwise gives a clean in or out decision per variable, which people like. Lasso gives you sparsity too, but you have to be a little more careful interpreting the magnitudes because of the shrinkage. Bottom line,
Use stepwise or best subset when you have a small number of predictors, strong domain priors, and you care about classical statistical inference. Use lasso or elastic net for high-dimensional prediction problems, especially with correlated predictors.
Let's ground this in a real, well-known example from the statistical learning literature, predicting a clinical outcome from gene expression microarray data. The numbers here are what make this case study instructive. You typically have on the order of 20,000 candidate gene predictors and only about 100 patient samples. That's not just a big dataset problem, it's a fundamentally different regime, often written as p much greater than n. Here's why that breaks ordinary least squares, not just slows it down. With 20,000 predictors and 100 samples, your design matrix is short and fat. That means x transpose x is singular. Mathematically, there are infinitely many coefficient vectors that fit the training data perfectly. Ordinary regression doesn't just perform badly here, it's not even well defined. This is exactly the situation Lasso was built for. Its L1 penalty, that sum of absolute coefficient values you see in the formula, forces most coefficients to exactly 0, not just close to 0. The result is a sparse model that names a small, manageable panel of genes, with the penalty strength, lambda, chosen by cross-validation. This is a great illustration of something we touched on earlier. When p is much larger than n, you're not choosing between stepwise search and lasso for convenience. Stepwise search is essentially infeasible, and lasso is close to a necessity. I want to leave you with one idea that separates people who've internalized the classical picture from people who've kept up with it. Remember that clean U-shaped test error curve from earlier? It assumes complexity effectively stops increasing once your model can perfectly fit the training data, what's called the interpolation threshold. But in heavily over-parameterized models, deep neural networks, and even some wide linear models where predictors outnumber samples, test error can fall again past that threshold. That's called double descent. The curve goes down, up, and then down a second time. This matters practically because AIC and BIC were built for the classical regime, and they simply don't anticipate a second descent. If you're working with heavily over-parameterized models, regularization and cross-validation remain the safer, more empirically grounded guides. I also want to highlight stability selection from Mainshausen and Buhlmann. The idea is straightforward but powerful. Instead of trusting a single fit of a sparse selector like Lasso, you refit it across many bootstrap resamples of your data, and you only keep predictors that get chosen in a high fraction of those runs. This directly addresses the stability weakness we flagged earlier with stepwise and single-fit Lasso selection. So here's a practitioner's rule of thumb to close this section. Use BIC when you need a small, interpretable model with strong theoretical footing. Use cross-validation when your goal is pure predictive accuracy and you can afford the compute. And default to Lasso or ElasticNet once your predictor count climbs into the hundreds. Let's bring it all together with 5 heuristics you can carry into your next project. 1. Never trust in-sample R-squared alone. It only increases as you add predictors, whether or not they're real signal, so it can't do the job of selection by itself. 2. Match the metric to the goal. BIC for parsimony and classical inference, cross-validation for raw predictive accuracy, and lasso once your predictor count is large. 3. Remember that complexity penalties differ in strength. BIC penalizes harder as your sample size grows. AIC is tuned toward prediction rather than recovering the exact true model. 4. Stability matters as much as fit. If a selection method flips its chosen variables every time your training data shifts slightly, that instability should worry you as much as a poor fit statistic would. And 5. Classical curves don't cover every regime. Heavily over-parameterized models can defy the textbook U-shaped error curve, so don't assume double descent can't happen to you just because it wasn't in the textbook you learned from. Those 5 ideas, more than any specific formula, are what I'd want you to remember 6 months from now. For anyone who wants to go deeper, here's where to start. On the theory side, Akaike's 1974 paper introducing AIC, Schwartz's 1978 paper introducing BIC, and Mallow's 1973 paper on the CP statistic. These are short, foundational, and worth reading in the original. For regularization, Tibshirani's 1996 Lasso paper and Meinshausen and Buhlmann's 2010 paper on stability selection, which we referenced a moment ago. For a comprehensive reference that ties all of this together, Chapter 7 of The Elements of Statistical Learning by Hastie, Tibshirani, and Friedman is the standard text. It's freely available online and covers model selection in real depth. And on the tooling side, Scikit-learn gives you Lasso CV, ElasticNet CV, RFE CV, and Sequential Feature Selector out of the box. And if you're working in stats models, fitted OLS and GLM results objects expose AIC and BIC directly as attributes, no manual computation needed. So, to close where we started, AIC, BIC, CP, cross-validation, and regularization aren't competing answers to the same question. They're different lenses on the same underlying trade-off between fit and complexity. The real skill isn't memorizing which one is best. It's recognizing which lens matches the question you're actually asking. Do you need inference with a small, interpretable, theoretically grounded model? Do you need raw predictive accuracy, and can you afford the compute for cross-validation? Or are you in a regime where predictors vastly outnumber samples, where regularization isn't just convenient but close to necessary? Pick the lens that matches your question, and the metric will follow. Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.